if you don't remember what it was like to be a buyer, if you don't put yourself in their shoes because you were once in their shoes, then it's hard to sell in a way they want to be sold to. It's hard
Mm.
to sell in the ways they want to buy. And therefore, all the objections come up, and therefore, the conversation is harder.
Sales Ascenders, happy Wednesday. Glad you're with us today. We get to meet yet another sales ascender, fellow sales ascender, Dr. Grace Lee, and I believe she prefers Grace. We'll get into all that in just a little bit and more because she's humble, but she has studied and probably read every book you can think of. She's a master at not just one topic, but multiple topics. And when combining, as we're going to discover those, combining those in this conversation of being a business owner and having a sales conversation, it is life-changing. She's hanging around with some of the best sales professionals in the game. So we'll get to hear again more about that later. This is going to be a really fun conversation. So Grace, thank you so much for joining us today.
Chris, thank you so much, and for your patience as well with all the tech failures we had. I really appreciate being here. It is my honor and my privilege.
Let's just start off with the background a little bit. You have some great frames, and I know that those aren't just trophies. They're accomplishments, they're journeys that you've learned through. What's one we should start with?
We can start with the big one,
The
which is
big one.
right
Yes,
behind
I
there.
love it. Yes, what is that one?
That's a master's degree from Edinburgh. And it's interesting, if you can see, it's actually larger than the PhD, which is that one right here.
That's ironic.
It's larger because it's written in Latin, and in the UK, they have everything signed by Her Majesty the Queen. So
Mm.
there's like a red label on it, and it looks very official and very royal. That is a story in and of itself, because my dream was to go to Edinburgh only because of the status of the university. Isn't it interesting what we do for status, right?
We do a
Isn't it?
lot for status,
We do a
apparently.
lot for status. And for an academic like me, the status of the university, they only accepted 8 people in that master's program. And it was in neuroscience, a master's in neuroscience, master of science in neuroscience. They only accepted 8 students. So I
Out
wanted to
of,
be one of those 8.
yeah, so 8 people out of how many?
I don't know how many apply every year, but University
But
of Edinburgh is an internationally renowned university for its placement and also its groundbreaking science. That university is the one that discovered Dolly the sheep. They're the first clone. They're the first people that cloned a whole organism, like the sheep.
I didn't even know. So sheep were actually the first being or animal that was I didn't even know that.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So 8 people, and the reason I was asking, I was just curious on the other number. We know roughly, logically, it's going to be a really really large number, and obviously eight's a small number. So you were fighting for that status, and you got it. What was it like going through the program? Like once you were accepted, how did that feel?
It was incredible, but at the same time, it was very fearful, and I
Mm,
didn't know what to expect. Right,
mm,
because here I was going into another place where I'm a visible minority. There's not a lot of Asians in Edinburgh, and going to an institution where I now have to pay international student fees. Right, at that time
yeah.
when I went, the year that I went, the Canadian to British pound was 2.5.
Wow.
Yeah, so 1 year
So
in university was a lot.
if and let's just pause here just for a second for all sales centers listening, all business owners listening. um, we're talking about sales, we're talking about growing our businesses, we're talking through a buying experience right now. I don't know if
Exactly.
everyone's thinking through that lens. I'm guilty of thinking about that lens quite a bit. And so just playing with that lens, you're paying 250%, if I heard that correctly,
That's right.
right, more than everyone else, and you're fighting to get in. Only 8 are accepted.
Yeah.
And then once you do it, you're excited, you're grateful. You also have these mixed emotions of I'm also a little bit nervous and scared
Oh yeah.
because I've got. So as our prospects are approaching us, a lot of times, well, at least we talk to multiple business owners where I'm afraid to charge more.
Yes.
This is literally the opposite of buying experience where it's like, oh my gosh, can I pay you almost triple? can I please fight and crawl and compete and go through page after page after page after page after page of application, a long process to just work with you. Anyway, it's a way different buying psychology. This is
Totally.
going to be a great conversation. I was already just really enjoying it. Okay, so
I
so
know.
let's
So
jump back into it.
you can see one thing the academic institutions do really well is that they sustain the perception of value that they're going to bring. And they have never once guaranteed or promised that there would be any ROI for any college degree in any major. However, so why do students invest tens of thousands of dollars, 20 to 60K a year on a degree when they don't know whether or not there's going to be an ROI? Is because of one reason only, because they have faith in the payoff that it's going to produce. First and foremost, I spent that money and I didn't have any more money after 1 year. I did the math because it was 250%, right? It was like 2.5 currency exchange. I looked at my bank account. I could not get any scholarship because I was not a resident of the UK or resident of Great Britain. So I wasn't eligible for a scholarship. I couldn't rely on that. And my student loan could only cover 1 year. So I only had 1 year to finish my
Oh my
master's
gosh.
degree.
Oh my. How
If
did that
I
go?
didn't if I didn't finish in that 1 year, I would run out of money. I'd have to leave, come back, and have uncompleted. I wouldn't have that degree on my wall. And
How would you feel about that uncompleted?
I would be devastated. And my brain would make up all sorts of meanings about what that meant. Like I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough, I failed, embarrassment,
Ugh.
shame. I would have all of it. Yet I still went. I still
And you got
went.
it done in a year. You kind of started talking in the past tense. Obviously, you got it,
I
but we didn't confirm if it was done in a year. But it sounded like so you found a way to do it in a year.
Yes, I did.
How did you manage without
Commitment.
sleeping for a year?
Commitment to the payoff. And that's the thing,
Mm.
all of our prospects are committed to the payoff. Some of them don't know what the payoff is, but we have to be really good at communicating what that payoff is going to be and what's possible for them. Because you see, we've been beat up so many times. We've been beat up over the years, and we have stopped dreaming. We've stopped realizing and recognizing what's possible for us for a future. And we've just accepted that this is the way it is, right? And that's how our
Oh,
prospects are when they come to us. So when we uncover what is a possibility for them, not for people they believe are higher profile than they are, but when we uncover the payoff that we can produce, that they can produce from where they are at right now, then they will have faith in that vehicle to produce that payoff. All students who have ever invested in college, regardless of whether or not they're still working in the industry related to their degree, at some point they put that money in through savings, loans, their parents' investments, is because they believed in the payoff. They believed in the vehicle, right? They had faith in the outcome of that college education.
as
And
you're sharing this, Grace, what's going through my mind is, everyone listening, all sales centers listening, do you have faith in your own outcome in terms of your own product and service? What is the
yes,
level of faith that you have for the new prospects that you're talking to, getting the result and the outcome with your system, with your product, with your service? And if that's low, it'd be interesting to look at the sales and the conversion rate and how you're feeling and all that stuff's there. But when that's really, really high, it'd be interesting to look at. So I look at this like a lot of, actually, I just got two more messages, this morning. And there's like kind of this overwhelm, some frustration around sales. And maybe with this conversation, why I'm bringing up what's sparking it is maybe like a lower faith, in payoff and outcome, and how powerful it is when that's high. And is like, we all know, like, the systems, if we're going to ride a bike, like the pedals have to move. If you move the pedals, guess what's going to happen? You're going to go forward. There's high faith for that, but we might stand or sit or fall down, or there's these other variables. But when the focus and the faith is there, we do balance and we do go fast. So I think I don't know, those are a couple things going through me as you're talking about this. This is going to be a good conversation. Excited to keep going. Grace, so you had that faith,
Yes.
and you were focused and committed. You did it for almost triple the price in half or less than half of the time, which is so powerful, right? And so you got over the line. What did, when you got the degree and you had that box checked, how did that make you feel?
It was surreal. It was surreal. And you see, I had not yet turned an ROI on my degree. I just graduated. I didn't turn an ROI. Now I have a student debt, right? I had a $60,000 student loan, and that was just 1 year. 60,000 was 1 year, right? I had that loan now, but I felt accomplished. I felt like I had already produced an outcome, and I didn't produce an ROI. But you see, it was believing in the outcome before I even knew the path. It was seeing the outcome before I even knew the path, because I didn't know what to expect. I've never been to the UK before. And I didn't know how how it would feel like to be there. And I actually didn't know what their official language was at that time. You know, I was in my early 20s. I was 22. I had no idea what language they spoke in Scotland. But but I went totally trusting myself that I could use that vehicle and produce the outcome that that I expected. And I had faith that that was the path that I wanted to go on. And the institutions are great over the years, over centuries, at creating that perceived value of the academic status and the degree itself, right? So that's why students still to this day are still wanting to look for college. That's why go to school, get good grades has been like the societal adage of that's the epitome of success. You got to go to school, you got to get good grades, and then you have these opportunities open up to you. But
It's
schools themselves have never promised it. They've never.
it's so, it's so true. Having this conversation, it's almost making me respect them in a kind of a weird way, where I'm like, wow, they are really good
They're
marketers.
really good.
Because my parents didn't. So let's see, my mom didn't finish college. My dad did. A lot more people, I think, in my family, mom and dad side, didn't go to college, then went to college.
Oh, okay.
And my parents were never like, you have to go to college, you have to go to college. I felt like it wasn't really talked about, but it was just always assumed.
Yeah, exactly. So how
So
did
it's
that
weird to
happen?
kind of,
It's so interesting.
yeah. And I got my, bachelor's, and I worked hard to get good grades. I graduated with Latin distinction and at the top of my class. I was awful at school. Really didn't like it at all. Um, anyway, it's funny to kind of reflect and think about the marketing and the psychology, which is what we're talking about. And you went through this experience, and from a business perspective, and a marketing perspective, it's like, again, like paying triple and doing it in less time. You have a massive debt. You feel accomplished, yet there's zero ROI for over a year. And there's plenty of people that are selling masterminds for a fraction of that cost, promising and guaranteeing, improving and testimonial of result, 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 result.
Yeah.
Yet schools are promising nothing and selling way more. And for the little cherry on top that you mentioned just at this last piece is you completely uprooted geographically and moved across the world for a period of time. Think about that sale. That is insane.
And you know what's interesting?
Oh my gosh.
Millions of college students around the world are investing in that vehicle. And they know that after 4 years, or in my case, after 1 year, that the ROI is not produced upon graduation. There's still a challenge to get a position. There's still a challenge to so-called climb the corporate ladder. And there's no objections in terms of enrolling in an institution. However, when you have people coming and wanting to buy a mastermind, a coaching program, a coaching program with accountability, all of a sudden one of the objections comes into play all immediately is, what is your success rate? How soon will I see outcomes? All of a sudden those objections come. So why is that? For one reason only, is because in the institution that model has been around for centuries, and so therefore we don't question it because of herd mentality. It's a cognitive bias where everyone wants to do what everybody else is doing, and if that's been the norm, then we don't question it. But masterminds, self-education is newer, and it isn't mainstream yet, right? And so when
Right.
we go into when we venture into something of an unknown territory, if someone is moving from employee to entrepreneurship, or moving from college, being used to the college academic pillar and they're moving into self-education. It is new. And then all of a sudden we have all this skepticism because we're focusing on outcomes that we don't expect. We're expecting the opposite of what we want. And so as salespeople, we have to understand that psychology and we have to be able to handle those objections before they start.
So what's crazy is you go through this whole experience,
Yeah.
and I like where this is going because there's your personal journey and the actual subject matter that you were studying, which has been very valuable to now kind of look back and apply. But at this point in the journey, you accomplish your master's, you have debt, and yet that frame is next to the other frame that says PhD. So it's not like it was, hey, I'm going to go into the marketplace now that I've actually accomplished. I am accomplished. This is ironic, right? I accomplished. I feel good. I've got a lot of debt, but hey, it's coming. I have faith.
It
I
is.
want to go back to school.
Yeah.
So walk us through that. Why go back for more?
I'll be honest, and because I know no other way. Going to do my PhD was simply for two reasons. Once you have your master's degree, the institutions are really good at telling you, well, there's a lot of people with master's degrees. You got to get a PhD.
Yeah.
You got to differentiate yourself. You got to go higher. You got to go full 9 yards, right? And so that was one reason. The other reason was after my master's degree, I was so focused on getting finished in 1 year, otherwise I'd run out of money, that I didn't have time and I also didn't know how to think about my career. So actually I didn't know what I wanted. To put it in very simple terms, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know how to make a life out of, I didn't know how to make a living. So
Yeah.
then what's a really good way to put off a decision is to do another degree.
Hmm.
Right? A great way
Yeah.
to postpone the career decision because I didn't know what to do. And here I am now, 22 to 23, and I had no idea what I wanted or how to get there. And I was lost. So then, oh, why not just go for a PhD? Then that way I don't have to decide yet. I can still be in school. I don't have a gap in my resume. So those are two reasons why I decided to go fully into a PhD as well. Isn't that interesting?
Wow. Yeah, and just a quick pause is I mean, congrats for being that focused, completing it, getting the degree. Not, a lot of times in the entrepreneurial or like business community where we're so revenue focused, it's like, oh, education, da, 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 da. I think both schools of thought are very pro education. It's just what they're focused on, and is a little bit different. For example, if you're going to go the lawyer or doctor route, I have plenty of lawyer friends, doctor friends. Like, you need to go to the education route, and there's a lot of merit in that place. If you are playing the business game and that is the end all goal, then there are some other paths that make a better case in terms of ROI and skill acquisition. So anyway, I just want to give some credit and merit, not just to you, but also kind of that dynamic. But you succeed. You stay focused, you stay committed. And how long did it take for the PhD? You said 2 years?
It was 5 years.
5 years. I was like, I thought I heard two for some reason. I was like, that's usually, I
No,
mean, that's insanity. I don't know how you didn't
that's
break in a
yeah.
yeah.
PhD is not possible.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so 5 years.
Yeah.
In 5 years, the walk everyone through that area of focus and what you learned, some of your takeaways from that time frame.
Well, the takeaway one was that without clarity in life and in career, it's really difficult to know what your goalposts are,
Mm,
right? So throughout my PhD, I was so focused on the research that I didn't have time or I didn't know how to think about life. And then you graduate, and the college goes, "Good luck. Go now and make something of your life. Good luck." And then everyone's on one hand excited about graduating, they get that photo with the chancellor and everything, we have that fancy graduation cap, but at the same time we're very scared. It's very
yeah.
typical for a graduate student to feel that way. We are the highest skilled, trained students. A PhD is the highest level of education. We're skilled, we're educated, but now we don't know how to turn that into money. We don't know how to make money from what we know.
So so you were in that spot. That was
I
you.
was in that spot.
How did you pivot? How did you transition? How did you figure it out?
Well, I didn't at first, because what is unwritten in graduate school is that the epitome of success is getting a faculty position. So when
Mm,
most PhD students are about to finish their degree, we're all competing for a small number of seats inside of college institutions. We want a faculty position. Being a tenured track professor is the epitome for success. And it's just what
mm,
everyone knows. And if people aren't successful at getting it, we kind of feel like we've failed or wasted our time in a PhD.
interesting.
That sunken cost fallacy, another cognitive bias. We have this sunken cost fallacy that, well, I spent so much time and energy and money in a PhD, it would go to waste if I didn't become a professor, or if I didn't become a lecturer, or if I didn't become a
Interesting.
researcher. Yeah, that sunken cost fallacy. And I was feeling it too, very strongly, because of how that risk I took to do my master's degree and then the PhD. Oh, I really had a huge bias towards that sunken cost fallacy.
And you seem to be really open to talking about it. I mean, now what's the debt load?
Oh no, that's paid off.
No, not like currently, but I mean like after your PhD, right? Because it was sick. You mentioned the number earlier. That's why I say it
Right.
seemed like you're 60 k in debt. After a 1 year, you go back for PhD, and then like I would imagine that's more expensive than the master's.
It is, but now I came back to Canada to do my PhD, and
Oh, okay.
I was eligible for a scholarship, and I got a scholarship. So I did
Thank
not,
goodness.
yeah, I did
Oh,
not incur any more debt for a
okay.
PhD. In fact, it was the opposite. I got paid a stipend to do my PhD.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
Very good. Very good.
yeah, which is not that common, but I got paid a stipend. It wasn't a lot of money though. It was barely enough to survive on, but at least I didn't incur any more debt on a PhD.
Yeah, right. Going a little bit more for the PhD in the ROI case, but still not fully there. And so you weren't really sure where did it start clicking for you, or how did you? I mean, there's still kind of in this story arc that we're kind of going through. There's still that component from the business side where you're like, man, I'm really working to figure that piece out.
Yeah. It wasn't until my stint in the corporate world. So I did eventually leave academia and I had to get over the feeling of failure, sunken cost. I had to get over that. But I went into corporate, got my cubicle job at a large biotech firm. And I was one of the senior managers there, managing a product line that brought in about $4 million a year. And it was my first foray into business. I really had
Wow.
no, I really had no business being hired for it, but I'm really good at persuading people to do things. So I persuaded them to hire me, and I had no relevant work experience, and I had the wrong degree, and I didn't have any business acumen.
My goodness.
Yeah, they hired me at the senior level. So here I
I,
was trying to figure it out.
yeah, I caught that, and I was like,
Yeah.
you've done all this research, but now you're over here.
Yep.
What a stressful spot.
It was very stressful. It was
I
stressful
mean,
because now I had to learn all these business things from a corporate perspective. And when I did, I was miserable in the role because there's
mm,
there's a lot of corporate red tape and feeling undervalued, feeling unappreciated, all of that. I experienced all of it, right? And in those 2 years I worked for that company, I had this pull, right, in my heart that I got to start my own thing. I got to start my own business,
mm.
but the objections came. I can't do that. I don't have an MBA, right? I don't have business experience. I wasn't born in a family of entrepreneurs, right? I don't have the gene, right? All of these objections came and I didn't feel like I could do it. I can't start a business. So I was fighting that. I was fighting that. So instead, I did what I knew how. Look at the job postings. What other jobs could I apply for? What new job, right? So I started doing that. I poured over hundreds of job postings, all the job sites you can think about. Not a single job posting spoke to my heart. Not
Hmm.
a single one lit my soul on fire. Not a single one did I feel like, oh yeah, I could see myself doing that. I could totally do that. I did not feel that way about a single one.
Did you feel that way about, the master's and the PhD at some point? Just
I
fully
was
convicted and
Yes, I was, but I was convicted because still subscribed to go to school, get good
all
grades,
the,
get a good
mm,
job. Yeah,
yeah,
that was
interesting.
my fuel. It for me, my education was my ticket to freedom.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was my ticket to
S-
freedom.
So you made it through, and there's all the psychology of not going the faculty route. You're in corporate. It's basically a whole new environment. and you're just like, oh, this isn't fully it. You're looking through all the jobs. You're like, that's still not it. Where does Grace go?
Yeah. I quit my corporate job with no
Yep.
backup plan. I just quit because it
It's
started to
too
affect my
much.
health.
Mm.
Yeah, I got sick, I was very depressed, and I quit the job and I went to Southeast Asia, traveled around Southeast Asia. I stayed in Singapore for about 10 months of the year, and I
Wow.
took up Muay Thai, martial arts, I was training with
Yes, I didn't
yeah,
know
with
that
the
one. That one hasn't come up yet in our convos. That's so cool.
That's right. I was training with like the legendary Muay Thai. These are like the Bruce Lees of Muay Thai. I was training under them, and it was so meaningful. It was like the Eat, Pray, Love movie, except instead of
So
going to
good.
a temple, I went to the gym.
Do you know Tony Jaa?
I heard of him, but I don't know him.
So the Ong Bak movies. So
That's right.
watched probably way too many martial art films growing up. But yeah, the Ong Bak. So there's like three. That guy, he's mostly Muay Thai, and
Yep.
he can do some moves. It's like he's really talented. Anyway, so Muay Thai. It's not like, I'm trying to, for everyone watching that's not familiar with Muay Thai, it's not like, you know, slow or like different movement. This is like knees and elbows, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna bash your face in. Like
that's right.
this is aggressive. I think maybe you had some like cleansing or some aggression to get out.
I I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. But it was very
I'm just kidding. It doesn't have to be that way. I was just
no, no.
having fun with
It,
it.
actually, that's valid because for me, very quickly, Muay Thai represented three things, right?
Mm,
It represented discipline in all areas of life, and it also represented how to fight with honor and
mm,
how to have dignity in defeat,
mm.
right?
Interesting.
So when I trained with these legends of Muay Thai, like literally they're legends in their and retired, but wow, their accolades in the sport are absolutely amazing, unparalleled. When I trained with them, that was when I started to realize that this is what it's all about, right? How to have those three things in life and how to change your perspective on what happens and every event, the way you perceive every event that comes to you, right? The perception of it, the shift in mindset, right? The art and science of fighting, of battling, because there's always going to be battles. But having that discipline, the dignity, and having that honor was what I learned from Muay Thai.
That's great. Yeah, that's really powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. And kind of the parallel of course, the easy to identify, the physical battle,
Yeah.
but how that battle happens from an emotional and mental, level, as it sounds like there's some principles in there that also were helping you and serving you in a high level, and they continue to do so.
Yeah.
Are you still doing? Obviously, you're not in Singapore and other places. Are you still practicing Muay Thai at all?
Not competitively anymore. I have too much at risk to to be competing, but
Yeah,
I do so for fitness. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's my boys are getting older, and I did martial arts for a while growing up, and I haven't done it in years. Taekwondo is like the one I was with the longest.
Oh,
Um, but had friends, that practice different arts and would try those every once in a while. But anyway, point is Muay Thai is on the list for my boys at some point when they're of age. I'm like, oh, let's try Krav Maga a little bit. Let's try Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. Just I don't know, feel it out, see how they respond, what they like and don't like. But anyway, that I did not see that coming. That was fun, and I will not make you upset ever. That's awesome. So what a crazy journey. So now you're kind of this, left corporate, no plan, finding yourself to some level, recovering a little
All of
bit.
the above. Actually, all
Yeah.
of the above. And just trying to, when you answer the call, the hero's journey, answering the call, right? That was my journey to answering that call, right? The fact that my knowledge and my expertise has value, right? And
Mm,
instead of being paid for what the job was worth, I was called to have more impact, to have global impact, right? And to change lives based on from what I, helping people from my knowledge and my expertise, and being paid for the value of my knowledge instead of for what the job that I show up doing. And that was the calling I was trying to answer, but I didn't feel I could because of the beliefs I had around my own capabilities.
And somewhat the structures you were operating within.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
mental models.
And yeah. So mental, and I was actually even alluding to some of the physical, i.e., like the corporate setting. You articulated that really well. Like here, this position equals this, does these outputs and is worth this much, and
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, round peg, square hole, or however you want to, however that works.
Well,
Um,
I was referring to the mental model of how money was
yeah,
generated, right? The only way I thought that I could generate money was through the model of show up somewhere, apply for a job, show up somewhere, and then get a salary for it.
totally. Yeah. I'm tracking that. I think the one that you're making, the mental piece, is the most powerful one.
Mhm.
And sorry, my brain was going over here because I was like, it's ironic, even kind of the physical matters, but the mental piece that you're focused on is so powerful. You're now answering this calling. Where did you end up going?
I tried to register and start my business in Singapore, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my intent was to stay there. I really enjoyed it so much. My intent was to stay there and continue with my training and in Muay Thai and to just establish some root in Singapore. But
Hmm,
Singapore is very strict with immigration, and I don't have family there. My family's I'm originally from Hong Kong, and I
hmm.
have family in Hong Kong and China, but no connections in Singapore. So I wasn't granted any. I couldn't get it. I couldn't make it happen. And I hired lawyers to
Hmm.
help me with that. So I
Wow.
couldn't make it happen there. So then I came back to Vancouver, and that's where I started the business. I registered it in Canada instead.
So that's how you landed in Canada. Okay. Another piece of the puzzle I was kind of curious about. So you registered your business, and I mean, what was that beginning part like for you? Because that's always that transition element, I think, is really powerful. All of it, because if we're leaving the 9 to 5, or we've left corporate, or we're the first one in our family, that's just that's a it's a really unique experience.
It is a unique experience, and this was a unique and a completely unknown one. Now I finally said yes. I answered the call, and I saw the vision of the life I wanted to create and the impact I wanted to have. I saw the vision of that, but now I just had no idea how to get there. But I wasn't interested in figuring it out myself because I'm very ambitious. I'm Ruby-esque. If you look at the gemstones, I'm a competitive person, right? I like results quick. Or I like to have results yesterday kind of thing. So I wasn't interested in figuring it out myself. And so that was why I had sought out a business mentor right off the bat.
Mm, mm.
I hired a business mentor right away to be able to guide me and to be able to show me what challenges I will come across and to be able to give me feedback on whether or not my expectations were realistic.
For someone starting out, um, that concept is of getting a coach
Yeah,
it's a great idea. And it's obviously really helpful. I always like to look at some of the best athletes in the world, because they all have coaches,
totally. Yeah.
all of them. And as in my competitive journey in sport, the higher I got up, I was like, the more and more like coaching and support there was around individuals. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But there's this battle of resource, and you know what I mean. So when you're just starting out, that pain of like, is this the right direction? Is this the right investment to do? How did you kind of weigh that out for you? It sounds like you were used to investing in yourself, with school, and so like, and that faith element. But I don't. What was that piece like for you?
For me, it was the exact parallel because I had done it 3 times. I have 3 college degrees. So it was the exact parallel, just a different vehicle, right? So the
Yeah,
vehicle was formal education, and now this vehicle was self education. It
yeah,
was just you just take it's like you just take this one entity and you put it somewhere else, that framework, right? So for me, it was the
yeah,
exact parallel. I'm not doing anything different, right? If I had already committed to $60,000 of not my own money but a loan money to go to college in Scotland, right? Then I felt that at that time I did it because I believed that I could work that degree, that I could do well. It's a belief in self.
yeah.
So then why would I not still believe? Because I'm congruent, right? To be congruent inside and out.
Mm,
Because of my congruency and being consistent and authentic to who I am, then why would I not still be congruent and be able to apply that same principle to this, right? To investing in a coach. So the coach would represent the institution and
Yep.
believe in my ability to learn what the coach is going to teach me. What, yeah.
How'd the ROI work out this time around?
It's much better, of course.
Yeah, a little bit easier to measure, a little bit
Oh,
faster.
yes, I would say so. I would
Um,
say so.
so that's the financial piece. What's the mental emotional part of that in terms of, not it being put to use, the feelings of value or not, some of those open loops of not that you were wrestling with the faculty type of position.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing. It was a huge mindset shift because I was so used to being in the employment sector, right? Being a academic slash employment sector where I was I was going to be compared to based on my qualifications, right? And I was paid for showing up and paid for the duties and the tasks that I was going to perform. Whereas now I understood and I could see it right away through the coaching that my business, the revenue I generate with that was going to be in direct correlation to the value I bring to the people I serve.
Hmm.
It's the outcomes I help them produce rather than just simply my accolades, and showing up somewhere was not good enough. I had to be able to produce an outcome, right? So then it was for the first time in my life, I realized how money made is a value exchange. And I never realized it because in
Hmm.
employment is not a value exchange, is a time exchange,
Yes.
right? And so it was a huge mindset shift. And as soon as I made that shift, I actually liked it. I liked that more. And the reason why I liked it more is because I didn't want my income to be tied to a time exchange. Because I went to Singapore, I had a taste of time freedom and I could never go back. I could never go back because then I realized, and this thing, we realize it subconsciously, but we don't realize it consciously, that time is actually a lot more valuable than money. There's nothing more valuable than time. You can't get time back, right? You would, right? You just can't get time back, but you can make the money back. And once time is gone, it's gone. And I didn't realize that consciously, but when I did, I actually liked the model more of being paid by value rather than being paid by time exchange.
From being an employee, from being a business owner, it's still a really good filter mental model to run through. How quick are we to give this, insanely finite resource of time away so easily for such an infinite resource, money? Like, and not like, yeah, more of an abundance mindset. Yeah, but there's like not even all of it, like just a piece of it or a little bit more than what we currently have. So like the way you articulated that was really, really powerful, of, time you never get back. And everyone watching, all, business owners, sales centers watching this, there's two perspectives on this.
Mhm.
One is us remembering as owners and leaders how we're spending our time, how we're viewing our time. You're like, oh, Chris, I've heard some of this stuff, but listen really carefully. Part of the power of this whole conversation is us also remembering this journey and this mindset of our prospects. Sometimes, like, man, one of the fastest ways we can increase uh, sales is to remember what it's like to be a buyer and not just
Yeah.
us as the seller, right? Usually we're so focused on being the seller, and when we forget to what it's like to be the buyer, and we're all still buyers, obviously, we're consuming every day, but when we don't like sit in that and relive that experience through our own onboarding processes and product and service buying journey, it makes things a lot harder. And when we're like, oh, when we look at it that way, we're like, well, that doesn't feel good, that's not right.
Mhm.
Right, and you fix it and then poof. So I appreciate you number one, sharing your story so everyone gets to know, because you've been through so much all over the world. Your perspective is a really, really unique experience. Yes, as a business owner, but also as a lot of different roles that you've had to play in your life. And in the psychology of sales and business, those two frameworks of being the owner, but also transitioning into one, and then just remembering what that buying experience is like is really powerful.
Yeah, and the reason why it's so powerful is because in that space only will you be able to sell the way they want to be sold, the way they want to buy, right? That's the way to get yourself into that mindset. If you don't remember what it was like to be a buyer, if you don't put yourself in their shoes because you were once in their shoes, then it's hard to sell in a way they want to be sold to. It's hard
Mm.
to sell in ways they want to buy. And therefore, all the objections come up, and therefore, the conversation is harder.
Have you ever heard the phrase like sell them what they're already sold on?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's so much easier. Right. I mean, it has to be honest, it has to be true, it has to be, or you're just going to have a horrible retention problem and fulfillment problem, and you're not going to like life. But assuming that all is true and honest, man, like sell them the way that they want to buy. It's really powerful.
Correct. I mean,
Yeah.
the sales conversation is supposed to be seamless, and it's best if it is seamless. The only pains that the prospect is quote unquote supposed to feel is the opportunity cost for not taking that, for not saying yes to that opportunity, right?
So
The
true.
the kind of like the emotional pangs of, oh my gosh, I now know what it will cost me to not take that opportunity, and it will cost me more than if I did. That pain is the only pain that they should feel in a sales conversation. Otherwise, it is supposed to be seamless. They don't even feel like you're selling them, but you are.
It's so true. It's so true. You've mastered this transaction, this journey, and as everyone's getting to know you and learn, more of your skills and expertise, um, before we get to the last question, um, there's an event taking place, and more of these types of conversations and much more is going to be taking place. Can you share with everyone what that's going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an event taking place next Friday. It's a 2-day event, December 18 and 19. And that is where me and my mentor and my friend, Myron Golden, we're going to divulge all the processes, the systems on how to take what you know, your knowledge, your expertise, and your enthusiasm as well. Take that online, monetize that online so that you can have the influence and you can have the income you desire. Right? And so we're going to be talking about all aspects of sales, all aspects of fulfillment and creating that offer. It's going to be super exciting.
So powerful, a journey that you've been on, and love Myron. Myron's the man. He, he's been selling about as long as I've been alive.
Yeah, same here.
So if there's one person to go hang out with, it's definitely Myron. So yeah, appreciate you, appreciate that. Next week is the week, guys, everyone, sales centers, go check that out for sure. And as we get kind of to the last question here, Grace, what's I always like to ask people um, the journey of entrepreneurship and putting yourself out there as a creator, and also putting yourself out there, um, willing to listen and serve and go through that process. It takes a tremendous amount of sacrifice and energy, even if all the deliverables are really calculated and everything's calendar blocked and you really got great systems and team. Even with all that, it's still a large commitment to do well. What drives you? What's your purpose? What's the impact that you're looking to leave on the world?
Wow, I love that question. Excellent question. Thank you for asking. My driver is very simple. To unveil what that is, I first have to go way back in time to a time in my childhood for many years where I was homeless and I was an orphan.
Mhm.
What happened was my mother had passed away, and my father somehow did not want me. He did not want to continue to care for me. So I was orphaned and I was casted out, and I was left to fend for myself since the age of 10.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was tough, lonely journey. I, was on the street for quite some time until I was discovered serendipitously, in other words, unexpectedly, but in a very pleasant way, by an older couple. And they took me in just by being observant that I needed a place to stay. And that couple raised me during high school, right?
Wow.
That couple also is African. They're African from Uganda. Isn't that
Oh my
interesting?
goodness.
Of all countries, they are Ugandan. And they own an orphanage in the heart of Uganda, just outside of Masaka, which is one of the major cities in Uganda. And because of my parents, I call them mom and dad now, right? Because of my
Mm.
parents, hundreds of children who were orphans just like me have an opportunity for a future. They have basic living, they have clothing, they have their first pair of shoes, they have access to medical care and a chance at a future because of my parents. In fact, the Ugandan government has recognized them as having changed and shifted the country from that orphanage. There's a lot that goes on in Uganda that we don't know. And
I would
it
imagine.
breaks my heart, and it broke my heart to see it. Right? I've been there and I've seen it. Right. So my mission is to empower people who realize that maybe they've come from a background where they were very disadvantaged, but that they can design their own destinies. They can achieve what I call vocational confidence, and
Mm.
they can go on to impact people who never thought that they could have been impacted, just like I did. Right. So that is my mission in life. Right. And all of my efforts is in remembering where I came from and having gratitude for the people who gave me a second chance. Because how many people out there don't have that opportunity for a second chance? Right? And I take a stand for people who felt like I did, like there was not a hope in the world, who felt like I didn't have a purpose in my life. I take a stand for people who are in that position, who have come from that decision and that position and are still recovering from it.
Mm.
Right? So I make a lot of contributions to Africa and to support a lot of orphans there. And I visit whenever I can. It's been a while since the pandemic hit, but I visit whenever I can. And yeah, I'm very outspoken for people who felt like they were underdogs or felt disadvantaged in life.
Grace, that was insanely powerful and very, very, very inspiring. It's that voice, it's you specifically, and it's stories like these of why we put together this member spotlight. Because in the Sales Ascenders group, there's tremendous, very talented, and life-changing stories just here in this group, just like the one that you so bravely opened up and shared today. And thank you for doing that, so that others can feel that, others can be inspired by that, others can their vision can grow, because not that just I mean this year has been an interesting year, but with all recognizing and acknowledging all those challenges that's created, but also just the challenges of life. It's very easy to get stuck in our own way. It's very easy to forget and get smaller and smaller and shorter and shorter sighted. And you just blew it all open today. So thank you for opening up. Thank you for being you. Thank you for continuing to show up and push forward and persevere. So grateful for that.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm grateful for this conversation and the opportunity to speak with you today.